Hey y'all, back at it again today. Um, so yeah, we're just gonna kind of jump right in to the notes. Jump right into the notes from the last reading. And so we left off by reading about every action creates a ripple in other dimensions that are greater than the actual cause. And this is especially true in acts produced internally, which is psychologically and consciously, meaning that any change that you do within the mind, whether it's positive or negative, then like the effects that it has is you know greatly multiplied in other dimensions. Okay. And we also learned that in order to see the huge expanses of reality, we need special tools. And those special tools are meditation, dream yoga or astral projection, and clairvoyance. Okay. Meditation is something that I kind of try to practice daily. Everything else. Well, I'm practicing on all of it, but meditation is one that is real heavy for me. Okay. We also view the picture of the tree of life, the Kabbalah, which is in the Kabbalah. We view that on page, I guess it's 24. Yeah, page 24. And so it just showed us the different dimensions that, like the reality actually consists of, and not just the physical. So there's different dimensions. The higher up you go, the more the ripple affects it. Okay, and we also read that we do have the senses that can perceive the other dimensions, but they are asleep. So that means that we need to do what we have to do in order to awake those, so that way we can see the effects of all of our actions and everything that it has on the other dimensions. We also read that we have to develop the capacity to change how we manage our energy if a better life is what we want. Okay, so a lot of times we focus on the wrong things in life, and that is feeding our energy to the wrong things, which will manifest the wrong things. Okay. To experience the reality of karma, actually, like you're able to actually experience the reality of karma in your day-to-day life. You can pay attention to the effects of your actions, which means that you have to be sincere in your self-analysis with no objective. Basically meaning that when you're, looking back at your day, you're basically not justifying any actions that you've done throughout the day. Okay. So we also read that success in gathering conscious self-knowledge depends on three irreplaceable factors. One is accurate training in the technique and supporting tools, meaning that you're studying the right things, and basically you're studying the right things. Two is the willpower to put it into activity from moment to moment, meaning that you're studying the right things, but you're also trying to apply it in your daily life as often as you can. Okay? Nobody's perfect, so we may slip, but the thing about it is that when you actually have the thought to catch yourself, a lot of people like to let themselves slide because they're justified in a certain situation. But when you actually have the thought to catch yourself, you need to consciously make that note to catch yourself, so that way you can just start building that credit up, to where one of these days you don't have to think about it, it'll just come naturally. And number three is patience to overcome obstacles and see results. And a lot of times this is where, we tend to mess up, is because we're studying the right things and we're actually trying to apply it, but when we have somebody in our face that's cussing and spitting and yelling at us and stuff, we lose our cool. And there's other scenarios or whatnot, but, I kind of know that my thing is with, a little anger or something like that. Like, I don't take well to people in my face yelling and hollering. Like, back the fuck up. Give me 50 feet. Okay? But, yes, so a lot of people fold under pressure. And, when you know that when you're, working on your patience, you're going to be put in tests that will try your patience. So The thing about it is to just be patient and overcome the obstacles so you can actually see the results. And the obstacles are there so you can utilize what you've been studying. Because if you utilize it, then you'll see the results. But if you just continue to justify your actions, then you won't see any results. Not any positive ones anyways. Okay? But yes, that is a wrap up from what we read yesterday. I feel like I'm doing pretty good on these videos. But yes, today I have my superhero shirt on. Anyways, off topic. I'm drinking on my ginger tea, so excuse me if you see me sipping on my drink during the video. Okay, so we're on page 39, and it is titled Our Present Reality. Okay, it takes a lot of willpower to develop the activity of our consciousness because our consciousness is asleep. It may feel exhausting to bring the consciousness to present awareness and to direct it to consciously observe. In the beginning, this requires a very rigorous, strong, tiring effort. If your spirituality is flaccid, weak, ephemeral, you just sort of float along through life, then you are working in the wrong way. Okay? Real spiritual development does not occur by just being on autopilot. All the myths that describe this path emphasize the unbelievable heroic efforts that the heroes have to make in order to save the maiden, to dominate the monster or dragon. Real spirituality requires incredible sacrifice, work, and is dangerous. Those are not just pretty fairy tales. They reflect a living, vibrating truth. Our consciousness is asleep and in danger, and to awaken it requires every ounce of strength that we have. For that effort, we need an enormous amount of energy. That is why all genuine religions have harnessed the power of the sexual energy to fuel spiritual awakening. Beginners in every religion were required to conserve their sexual energy so that energy could be converted into spiritual power. Awakening does not come through concepts in the intellect or beliefs in the heart or repeated actions in the body. Awakening comes through energizing and activating the consciousness. Okay? Liberation from suffering does not come through intentions, the way we dress, the way we talk, or the books we read. Liberation comes as a result of, right now, paying attention, being awake and aware of the consciousness itself, and freeing ourselves from the causes of suffering. Those who awaken the consciousness without freeing themselves from pride, anger, lust, envy, gluttony, and all those selfish desires become terrible sources of suffering for themselves and others. Meaning that a lot of people, like to speed up the track of becoming conscious, and you couldn't do that. But if you don't rid yourself of ego, then you're just basically rushing yourself down a path of destruction. Okay? In order to empower the consciousness, it is necessary to save our energy and to give it to the consciousness. Then, we must learn to direct it towards the goal of liberation from the causes of suffering. As Buddha Shakyamuni explained in the Four Noble Truths, suffering is caused by desire. Thus, we learn to pay attention to desire in all its forms, to learn how it functions and to see the results of its activity. Our consciousness in its original natural state is free, happy, wise, and capable of seeing the divine. Yet over the centuries we have trapped that consciousness in pride, lust, envy, fear, greed, laziness, etc. Thus our consciousness is modified by those qualities. We can no longer see the divine. That is why we have so many theories and beliefs. We no longer have conscious knowledge of the divine. To restore the natural state of the consciousness, we have to remove the obscurations. We cannot remove them if we cannot see them. So it's just like I tell people all the time, if you notice that I'm doing something wrong, bring it to my attention. Don't just let it slide to the point where you get upset one day, because we can't fix something if we don't see the problem. And that's step one to solving a problem, is actually noticing that there is a problem. It is one thing to pay attention to what is going on outside of us, and this is good. We have to pay attention to our environment. Yet it is another thing to pay attention to what is happening to the intellect, in the intellect. That is also important, to watch our thoughts. It is something else to consciously watch our feelings, our emotions. And it is something else again to observe the sensations and impulses of the body and how we react to them. Observing all of these elements is fundamental to the process of developing conscious self observation. But really, to awaken consciousness and reach freedom from suffering, we need to be aware of the consciousness itself, how we perceive, how, not just the fact of perception, but how we are perceiving. This is a super this is a supercritical action for us to observe, because every action of body, speech, and mind requires consciousness. Then, once we learn to be aware of the activity of consciousness, we have to also see, it is our consciousness modified by desires, or is it free, unrestricted? Then, once we learn to be aware of the activity of consciousness, we have to also see, is our consciousness modified by desire, or is it free, unrestricted? Most of the time, we have no idea what the motivations for our actions are because we are not paying attention. We are usually so overwhelmed with the surging chaos of thoughts, worries, concerns, fears, and desires that we have no self-cognizance in the midst of it. We are like a log tossed on a stormy sea. That stormy sea is our mind, and we are tossed about by all the surging wheels in our minds. Inside, we are experiencing a surging psychological chaos. Even when it subsides, we remain in psychological darkness without any real sense of why we are alive. To just go along with the circumstances of life, to just be tossed around by the competing desires within us, is to allow oneself to go down the drain. Because really, everything on this planet, all of the energy, all of the forces are going down the drain. It is not hard to see it. Unfortunately, we do not want to see it. Okay? Unfortunately, we do not want to see it. We prefer to avoid seeing the truth of what's happening in the world. If you want to be free from suffering and develop your fullest capacities, you cannot just sit back and relax and tell yourself that you are spiritual or okay and let the current of life take you. If you want to do that, it is your choice. But are you sure of where the current of life is going? When you consider the basic aspects of karma, which we have spoken about, and apply them to the world as a whole, you can see that all of the actions of humanity have set in motion a huge storm of energy, driven by anger, greed, lust, jealousy, fear, gluttony, and more, whose results will be an unimaginable deepening of the suffering we are already enduring. It would be wise to learn how to escape the situation and to help others do the same. To incarnate wisdom, to become truly wise, we have to change. And change does not come by sitting back. Change comes through work, and not merely a little bit of effort, not just a few minutes a day, but a continual effort. Think about this example. You are shipwrecked, holding on to your log. That log is your life, your circumstances in life, that which keeps you afloat, your family, job, and situation. All of us, at any instant right now, could lose everything because nothing in this world is stable. At any instant, everything we have could be taken away. If you do not believe me, ask somebody in any of the countries that has recently experienced a disaster or war. They will tell you that suddenly, from one moment to the next, everything you have relied upon is gone. None of us have any assurance that what we have now will be here tomorrow. Thus, we need to be serious about developing something we can rely on that will not be outside of us, but inside of us. We are on the little raft of our life, and the current is taking us. How are we going to swim out of the whirlpool that is sucking the world into chaos? With all of the energy that is pulling all of us, how will you get out of it? Are you truly going to sit on your log and read a book and expect that you will avoid pain and suffering? Do you sincerely expect that a religious belief will free you from suffering? And I hate to say it, but it is so sad that a lot of people do. That's part, and I speak for Christianity because, like I'm Gnostic Christian or whatever. I'm trying to be, aspiring Gnostic. But the fact that they just tell you that because Jesus died on the cross, he saved your sins, and that's enough to get into heaven if you believe. And it's not like, the idea of it is good, and it sends hope. But you're basically stripping people of the power to actually save themselves when you get them to think like that. Only action can save us from destruction. To escape the destructive current of life, you have to swim with all of your might, with every ounce of energy that you have. You have to fight the current of life. That current is outside of you, and it is inside of you. The way to fight the current is to the way to fight the current is to analyze yourself and change. It sounds desperate because it is. Our situation truly is desperate. Some say that we must rely on God or the divine to help us. While there is truth in that statement, it is equally true that unless we do our part, there is nothing the divine can do for us. And that is where the saying, God helps those who helps themselves. He doesn't, he helps, but if you're not putting in no work either, it's only so much that the divine can do. For centuries, people have been praying for God to save them, yet they continue to suffer as always. Those who have transcended suffering had to work hard. As painful as it is to look at our life and feel the uncertainty and fear of losing what we have, it really is not a beneficial perspective because it is very selfish. Let us all open our eyes. Instead of looking at the little log that we are clutching onto with so much attachment and fear, open your eyes and look around, and you will see that you are surrounded by millions upon millions of people in the same situation. That is what is truly terrifying, horrifying. If you are really sincere, you will burst into tears because all of the people around you in the world are the people you have loved and who have loved you. They are your mothers and fathers, your sons and daughters, your brothers and sisters, your wives and husbands. They are all suffering and headed for more suffering. This is what true spirituality exists for, as a way to change that. We put our situation into stark terms because that is our reality. We put it into stark terms not to encourage fear, nor to make us feel desperate, afraid, or worried, but because they are the facts. And we must see the facts in order to have a chance to change them. Okay, we are out of the time to sugarcoat things. It's down to the nitty gritty. Okay, it's black or white. It is not hard to see that the world is getting worse and civilization is on the edge of complete failure. All the energy humanity has been putting in motion for centuries is cascading into a whirlpool of degeneration and pain. Because of this, there are many people who give up on spirituality because they become hypnotized by fear, shame, and terror. They become overwhelmed. They defeat themselves. They feel it's too much for me. I can't handle it. It's too hard. I can't do it. Self-defeatism is a challenging opponent. Many use of the words of spirituality. Many use the words of spirituality to defeat themselves, saying that the state of the world demonstrates that God does not exist or does not care. All of this is due to grave misunderstandings of religion and scripture and a profound lack of genuine knowledge. What people do not realize is that in the midst of the greatest adversity is the greatest potential for change. That's the Hermetic principle. What is it? Polarity. Like the pendulum swing to the left and to the right. So in times where it seems like it's the darkest or the hardest, is the time where you can make the most beneficial progress if you try. The energy that is in motion can be a powerful catalyst for deep and lasting change. What those who give up on spirituality need is to develop a genuine understanding of the law of karma. When you really understand the law of karma, then you will have great faith. When you work seriously in your spiritual life, you will prove to yourself that it is possible to reach complete liberation. It can be done, but you have to invest energy into it. It cannot be a temporary or part-time job. It has to be full-time. Each little investment of energy we make results in a consequence that is greater than the energy invested. Each time we meditate, each time that we restrain a harmful action and we turn it into something beneficial, we create a huge impact, not just for ourselves, but for others. Okay? On to page 49. The power of generosity. The power of generosity is one of the greatest powers in the universe. The power of generosity is unimaginable. Generosity is the very basis of spiritual advancement. It is karma in motion, creating benefit. That is why all the great masters exemplify generosity, the power of sacrifice. In Kabbalah, that is the power of the Sephira Shakma. Love as sacrifice, the power of giving. It is a generosity of spirit, a generosity of heart. True generosity is most accurately summarized as thinking of others before yourself. It is the most fundamental basis of real spirituality. And it kind of contradicts if you watch the other videos how I said, like, if you got your last $5, how you should kind of think about yourself first. Maybe you shouldn't. But that's life. The more we learn, the more we contradict ourselves. And if you're not contradicting yourself, then you're not really learning, because you can't be right all the time. You don't know everything. As we are now, we only think of ourselves, and when it is convenient to us, we might think of somebody else, only if it is convenient to us. That is not sacrifice. The true spirit of generosity is to constantly think of others first, especially in regard to our psychological work and our spiritual work. Some spiritual traditions talk about eliminating desire, but we usually think about eliminating desire in an egotistical way. We think, I want to eliminate my ego so I can reach liberation from myself. It is very egotistical and contradictory. The opposite polarity of generosity is selfishness. The power of selfishness has created the state of the world today. All of the suffering of humanity is caused by selfishness. Okay? So there was that principle, polarity. Okay? And so, excuse me one second, but that's why I say you have to just rid ego. You have to want to be a better person for the sake of people around you and not just so you can leave this hellhole. Because that's how I used to be. Wanting to just leave and just better myself so I didn't have to suffer. But if one person is suffering, we're all suffering. Okay? We're only as strong as our weakest link. I don't know, I always say weakest link. All religions, before they become corrupted by selfishness, were originally conceived in order to guide us out of our selfish point of view and learn how to become truly generous, that is, conscious of others. For this purpose, our religions were organized in levels in order to prepare us to reach the heights of spiritual development. To reach very elevated levels requires a very powerful foundation. Imagine a tower. If the base is weak or easy to damage, the tower will fall. Similarly, we need a strong foundation. In spirituality, the foundation is a deep understanding of 1. Impermanence. Death is inevitable. Our physical body is impermanent. Everyone knows that, but few are they who really know it. Those who comprehend that life is impermanent and death certain do not waste time on foolish activities. Moreover, no matter how many possessions we accumulate during life, we do not take any of it with us when we die. Those who comprehend this prefer not to waste so much time and energy on material things. 2. Ethics. Every religion teaches ethics so that we comprehend cause and effect, karma. Every religion emphasizes that by doing good deeds, we receive benefits. By performing harmful actions, we receive suffering. So it's basically like, that's the foundation of every religion. That's why I stated before that every religion is a golden pearl on the... Every religion is a pearl on a golden thread of divinity. Okay, so it's just our own selfishness that has misconstrued the teachings. but everything is still there if you have the eyes to see it. At the foundational level of instruction, students are primarily concerned with their own karma, their own suffering. In other words, while they may talk about loving and serving others, their actions are primarily driven by concern for themselves. To advance to the next level of instruction, their attitude has to be transcended. Selfish spirituality is not compatible with the higher trainings. To receive the higher trainings, you spontaneously have to be at that stage where you think of others first, where you start to realize, I really need to eliminate my pride because it is hurting other people. I really need to eliminate my lust because it is hurting other people. This anger in me is hurting other people. When that is your first spontaneous impulse, you are showing signs of being ready to enter into the middle level. In Buddhism, it is called Mahayana, the greater vehicle. Jesus gave profound teachings about this level of instruction. In order for us to enter the higher aspects of the path, such as the middle range of the path, which is the Mahayana aspect, and then the Bodhisattva path, which is the tantric aspect, we have to have a strong foundation first, which is the Sutrayana, or foundational path. To have that foundation, we need to comprehend two primary aspects, death and karma, cause and effect. None of us comprehend either. This is proven and easy to see when we analyze just the day of our lives, yesterday for example. If we are sincere with ourselves, we can see how much time we wasted in futility, in activities that are completely pointless, spiritually speaking, and the rest was spent thinking about ourselves. There is so much that we have been doing, spending time on, thinking about, being worried about, investing energy into, that are fruitless spiritually. Moreover, we do them thinking that we will still have time on this planet, that we will not die. We believe that death may happen to anyone else but us. We act in ways in which we think we will not bear the consequence, as if we can act, think, feel, and do what we like without receiving consequences. So, for example, we think lustful thoughts. We look lustfully at others. We nurse our anger. We feed our pride. We indulge in envy. All of these are done in ignorance of death and karma. It is quite simple and quite sad, but these are fundamental aspects. How can we expect to move on to the greater and higher aspects if we do not even grasp this today in our daily life? As it is now, our mind is selfish. Even when the mind does charity and is generous, it is always, in the end, acting for itself. We give donations and we do volunteer work, and on the outside we look like we are great saints in helping humanity. But we are really fattening up our pride. That is not real generosity. True generosity does not concern itself with itself. True generosity is love as sacrifice, giving because it must be given at any cost. That is generosity. That is true compassion. Excuse me. The highest level of spiritual instruction is given to those who embody generosity and whose every action is done to benefit others. All of our greatest spiritual heroes attain this level of generosity and sacrifice everything in order to help us realize how to stop suffering. That is why the beginning level of every religion is ethics, how to stop causing harm. Okay? On to page 55. Stop harmful actions. The first, most important way for us to act for the benefit of self and others is to stop performing harmful actions. That means harmful actions towards ourselves or other people. To understand what harmful actions are, we have to study the teachings. We have to study our religion. You can start by studying any religion to grasp this concept. This is the fundamental basis of any religion. It is the level where we learn ethics, what we should do, what we should not do. In general, the steps are pretty simple. Do not kill, do not steal, do not lie, do not abuse your sexual energy. Eliminate pride, eliminate anger, stop your selfishness. In general, it is to treat others as we would be treated. Of course, we all know this, but we do not do it, especially inside in our minds and hearts. In the Western traditions are the 10 Commandments and other guides to a higher way of behaving. In the Eastern traditions are the Vinaya, Pratimoksha, and many more presentations of ethics. There are many lists and analysis of the different actions that are harmful or beneficial. You can study any of those, and they will all help. Most importantly, you have to study your heart. The truest guide for action is your own conscience. But to be guided by it, we have to learn to hear it. We all have our own idiosyncrasies. We all have qualities that we think are virtues, that we think are our good qualities, which are actually completely egotistical, and no book is going to teach you that. You will only see that in yourself, in actions in your daily life. If you take this teaching seriously, you will see it. You will learn about it, because your innermost divine will show you. The innermost is our connection to the divine. The innermost is our real being. Our being is divine, pure, eternal. It is our spirit. It is not the soul. It is not the mind or consciousness. The innermost is our inner Buddha or angel who waits to instruct us. Whether we are spiritual or not, we experience situations in life that are painful, that are hard, partly because we created the conditions for them to arise, and also because our innermost is putting us there to teach us about ourselves. When a puppy dog releases its waste in a wrong place, in order to teach it, we put its nose there and say, "Don't go there." And our innermost does that with us too. Our innermost puts us into situations that we made and says, "You made this mess. Do not do that." See how unpleasant it is? See how painful it is? But we always curse God for our circumstances. We blame everything on others. We are unwilling to see ourselves, so we always say to ourselves, "Why is this always happening to me? Why do I have to suffer? Why these problems? Why me?" We do not realize that we made our life through our actions. We do not want to see our own culpability. To be a serious spiritual practitioner, that is the first thing you look for in any situation. How did I make this? How did I get myself in this position? What in me is suffering? That is the best question of all. Instead of looking outside, he is making me suffer. Burke is making me suffer. My wife is making me suffer. Look back at yourself and say, what in me is suffering? Because really, it is not your spouse that is making you suffer. It is your anger that is making you suffer. It is your pride that is making you suffer. If you did not have that pride, if you did not have that anger, their words would not have meant anything. They would not have affected you. Their actions would not have bothered you. But because you have pride and envy and anger, you get bothered a lot. We have to stop harmful action, to restrain ourselves from any act of negativity. This alone can take many, many years. I know a lot of people like to think as soon as they enter into religion and they read the list of commandment or vows, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I can do all of these. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't sleep around, so I must be on my way to heaven. It does not work like that. Even though you may not be doing something physically, you are probably doing it in your mind. That is the hardest part. Jesus said, even if you look at a woman with lust, you have committed adultery. In the state we are in, we constantly perform harmful actions in our body, feelings, and thoughts. In other words, we produce causes that create harmful effects continually because our desires are acting in us. So as part of this accurate analysis, we have to continually watch our behaviors and stop ourselves from doing harmful things, not just physically, but in the mind, in the heart, through our words, through our thoughts. This requires continual observation. Self-observation is absolutely essential, critical, not just for a few minutes, but all the time. Never stop paying attention to your psychology. Do not get sucked into daydreaming, into being distracted by the outside world, by fantasizing on the outside world, or by fantasizing on the inside world. Watch your mind, because at any instant, something in you is contemplating a harmful desire. Samael Aun said that 90% of our thoughts are harmful and negative. If we are honest, How much do we really watch our mind during the day? Very little. What about all those other thoughts and feelings that have been surging throughout the day that we did not pay attention to? Those are all streams of energy that are creating effects that should scare us. Excuse me. Long morning. That should scare us into acting. That should be great. That should be of great concern to us. The instant we realize we have lost mindfulness of our actions, we should feel as if we have just discovered a serpent in our lap. We should be that astonished, because truly, to lose attention is a life or death matter. When we cease paying attention, when we lose our cognizant awareness of the moment, we slip into sleep. And then all those psychological stimuli that are processing in our subconscious, unconscious, and infraconscious levels are creating effects. That is why life is getting more complicated and painful. That is why our society is declining, because nobody is paying attention to themselves. Burke. I was driving today, and I was trying to be in a moment, enjoying all the beautiful trees that Atlanta has to show me. And I was still I was still constantly catch myself like drifting. Like I'll be driving, looking at the trees, like, oh, that's a pretty tree. Oh yeah. Oh, I wonder what Austin's doing. Oh yeah, and then your mind just start going and look back like, oh snap, And then I started driving, dreaming and stuff. But the thing about it is, like it says, when you catch yourself slipping, you should act like you got a snake in your lap. Like, oh my God, let me get back to it. And just get back in a moment. But anyways, in many religions, this step is symbolized by death, such as the beheading of John or the martyrdom of the saints. Our desires must die in order for our true potential to be born. If the seed does not die, the tree cannot be born. Yet, if the harmful action is restrained, then a beneficial action can emerge. A beneficial action, whether inside or outside, has incredible power. When you stop yourself from doing something, although you still had the impulse to do it, but your physical acts did not carry it out, that created beneficial waves. Okay, just like the actual thought created negative waves, but positive always outweighs negative. Okay. Okay. Alrighty, so I think we're gonna stop there for today. And so, just like any other video, leave your comments. Let me know what you think. Is there anything that we could do better? Would you like some little voices to go along with stuff? But yeah, I just feel like I should share with y'all that, as we all know, I am not an awakened being. I am traveling on a path in order to be awakened. But, like I'm just living everyday life, just like the rest of the billions of people in the world. So by me just making these videos, reading the books and stuff, I would think it was just a good way for, people of the same community to come together. Like there's so many YouTube videos out there about everything under the sun, but not many, like book groups or book videos or whatnot. But you do have, the videos where the audio books and stuff like that, but want to kind of create something that's interactive, that many people can, follow along and just interact, And so I say that to say that, like I'm not perfect, I live my life. I probably had some slip-ups today. Once I meditate and look back on my day, I will see them and figure them out. But, like I'm just a work in progress. But, I do try every day to become better than I was yesterday. And that is physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, everything. So I never, although we have ego. So every now and then, you might try to justify yourself, but I try to not justify myself in a situation if I can help it. A lot of times I can't catch myself, and sometimes I still allow myself to slip. But then sometimes I correct myself and just try to figure out like why it is that I'm feeling how I'm feeling. And so I just want, like I said, to build a community of people who are trying to be the better one for the world. Because if instead of pointing a finger at everybody else, if we look in the mirror and fix ourselves, if everybody in the world did that, you would just have a bunch of people just fixing themselves. And before you know it, you'll look up and the world is healed. Not because somebody is pointing out somebody else's mistake, but because when that person sees somebody else's mistake, you look back at yourself and wonder, why were you able to notice it? Why was it able to affect you? And just, change the way that you view things so you can change the way that you do things. But I appreciate all of you that do watch the videos. Like I said, we're just in the beginning, but my hopes and my dreams and my prayers are that, just like there's interaction on other YouTube videos about other stuff, that we can have an actual live book club, crew, group, gang, but that we can have, a live thing going on, to where as I'm reading, like people can write, I can read your comments, and just interact like that, and just build each other spiritually, like build that community that you don't, going to church is good, but sometimes you might not, feel like you want to or have to or whatnot, but you can always just, depend on the stuff like this that you can actually read and comprehend and utilize in your everyday life. Okay? And so once again, I appreciate you all for stopping by. And we're going to close with the saying, may all beings be happy, may all beings be joyful, may all beings be in peace, and may the causes of our suffering be erased. Okay? So y'all have a good day, and read with you later.